Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
It's 10:45.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
It's 10:45.
All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to this workshop where I'm going to teach everyone how to start a business from scratch. And it's going to be very exciting because I'm going to teach you everything that I've learned in the last 30 years after launching 5 startups. So I'm going to try to compress everything into 60 minutes where you're going to get really hopefully everything you need to know to start a low risk, positive cash flow business. And just as an aside, I gave this workshop, this 2-hour workshop, a few hours ago. It was 2 hours, but unfortunately, the microphone on my webcam broke, so I didn't record the audio. But the good news is that I was able to, record everything that you see here. So it's about 62 slides. So I'm going to go through these slides and I'm going to teach again what I was teaching a few hours ago. But instead of 2 hours, I'm going to compress into 1 hour. So I invite you to pull out a notepad and start taking notes, because this is even better than an MBA. Because when you pay tens of thousands of dollars for an MBA degree, and that's 2 years full-time of your life, or 3 to 4 years if it's part-time, you're not really learning how to build a business from scratch. You're learning how to manage a business that exists already. And that is so much easier, because when you think about it, a business that exists already is like a plane, right? Or a car, or even a bicycle. And it's really not that hard to to run a business that exists already, in the same way that, it doesn't take a genius to ride a bicycle or drive a car. And to fly a plane is much easier than to build a plane. So in this workshop, I want to really teach you how to design a business like from scratch. Okay, like you have nothing, and so you're creating a business from scratch. And because it is such a challenge to create this business from scratch, what we're going to do is we're going to simplify as much as possible. So we're going to design like the smallest business that you can create, because we don't want to be arrogant and think too big. So it's going to be the smallest business, but at the same time, it's going to be cash flow positive. Okay, this is what we call the cash flow. It's positive. And this is something, unfortunately, that far too many entrepreneurs don't understand when they're creating a new business, because they think of a business as a kind of, as a kind of adventure. But it's not really an adventure. It's just something that you have to achieve as quickly as possible. I mean, it could be an adventure, but you want to achieve success in business, which means positive cash flow. You want to achieve that as soon as possible. So if we look at what's happening when you're launching a new business, and of course, let me just draw the diagram here.
It's 10:50.
You have time, and you have the money that you're making. And this is profits, right? So it's positive or it's negative. And so when you're starting out, it's not like you're starting with this amount of income, because let's say your previous job, you were making $50,000 a year. So you're starting here, right? And then over time, your employer is going to increase your salary a little bit to keep up with inflation and to prevent you from quitting. And so your salary is going to increase, but you're already starting with, a paycheck that is usually regular. It's very unlikely that your boss is going to tell you, John, this week we're not doing so well, so I'm not going to give you a paycheck. It doesn't happen. So you're getting a regular paycheck. But what's happening when you're starting a business, you're not getting a paycheck. In fact, you have to spend money. And so you're going down here, and that's why you have to really pay attention to how you design your business, because you could go down here in the red. Well, sorry, you can go down. Let me just choose a color red. You can go down in the red, right? You're spending money, and then you're spending more money. You're not making money, and so you're spending more money, and this is typically where your wife is going to threaten to divorce you. Okay, so that's why you shouldn't get married and launch a business at the same time. You got to choose one. I'm just kidding. But you're spending money, and then at some point, you're making some revenue, but you're still negative. You're making revenues, but you're still negative because you're not covering your expenses. And it's a little bit like swimming under the ocean. Finally, you get to this point where, wow, you break even. So this is where you should really bring out the champagne and really celebrate, because you're not making a profit. You're starting from zero. You're basically like a recent graduate. But still, you should celebrate, because chances are you could, if everything's okay, doing well, then you could very well be on your way to making profits. Okay, so here you're beginning to make profits, and the trajectory looks good. You're heading in the right direction, and so you should continue. Usually, you continue to do what you've done before to attract new customers, and so and you get to a point where your profits are equal to the salary of, let's say, John. John is a friend of yours, right? But he stayed in a corporate job, and let's say you're Susan. You have more balls than John, and so you're starting a business, and so you catch up to John here, and I don't know, maybe this is like 2 years later, you catch up, and John is not laughing anymore. Hey, Susan, what's going on? And then Susan tells John, you know what, John, you didn't believe in me, and too bad for you. Now I'm making more money than you. I bought a Tesla S. I travel all over the world. I have passive income, while you, John, you're still stuck at your job in a cubicle. Okay, I'm just kidding. Don't make fun of people. But this is what typically, ideally, this is what should happen. Okay, like this is ideally, but unfortunately, I've been training and consulting for women entrepreneurs since 2005, and this is not what's happening with women entrepreneurs or even male entrepreneurs. But I admire the courage of women, because they have the courage to start a business, and they work hard. But what we're going to see in this workshop is that working hard, passion, perseverance, resilience, a support network, the perfect husband, all of that is important, but it's not enough to succeed. You have to have knowledge in order to succeed. And this is what I'm going to teach you in this webinar. And so ideally, that's what should happen, right? Susan, during this period of her life, very stressful, very painful, about 2 years, she's going to be in the red. Like, nobody wants to talk to her. She's going to be isolated. Her female friends are wondering what the hell is going on with Susan. Like, we don't see her anymore. She doesn't go out anymore. Of course, Susan doesn't go out. Like, she's stuck with her business for 2 years. But ideally, this is what happens. But today, and
It's
that's why
10:55.
this is why I tell women, like, ladies, trust me, AI is your best friend. Like, not even your husband. Your husband doesn't give you money. AI is going to give you money. AI is going to be there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. AI is better than a boyfriend. It's better than a husband. Okay. I'm just half joking. But women have to understand, like, typically, like, it might take you 2 years to become cash flow positive to get to this point. But with AI, what's happening is that this curve, it could very well turn out to be like this. And so instead of 2 years, maybe we're looking at 6 months. And then after 6 months, you're going to be shooting through the roof. You're going to be profitable. And so that's why, like, women have to, or I think they should, get into AI. Like, it's not that technical. You don't need to learn about how computers work. You don't need to learn programming or even marketing. You don't need to have testosterone like men. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to be salesy or promotional and go all over the place on social media. This is the best tool, the best technology for women and for men too, of course. But I'm more a little bit more interested in helping women because I used to be the chief executive officer and the founder of Talentel, which is a training company for women that me and my sister, we started. I hate losing. And that company failed after 4 years because I didn't know what I was doing. So I take full responsibility, but I hate losing. So, I'm more interested, a little bit more interested in helping women than men, but I'm as passionate about helping men, women, extraterrestrials. I want to help anyone to become financially free. I cannot promise that you're going to become like a millionaire with what I'm teaching here. You could, because that's my goal. I want to become a billionaire. I'm not shy about it because it's possible. And it's possible in the same way that, whether you want to, hold on, let me just create a new slide here. You should think really big because, whether you want to make, I don't know, $200,000 a year net profit, you want to make $1 million, you want to make $5 million, you want to make $10 million in net profit, it's possible. You know why? Because it's like a plane. Okay, AI is very much like a plane. And so I ask you, what do you want to go to Paris? I went to Paris once. You want to go to Vietnam? I went to Vietnam once. And so what's going to take you to Paris or Vietnam? Okay, so I'm in Montreal. So where do you want to go? Do you want to go to Paris or do you want to go to Vietnam? What's the difference? Well, they're both using a plane, right? Except that Paris, 6 hours? And Vietnam is going to be 24 hours. It was a killer. I hate that. But that's because it's the first time I travel, for 24 hours. But it's not just the time it takes, it's just the money. I don't know, Paris, so let's say 2K. And if you go to Vietnam, I don't know, maybe 3K or more. So it's just a matter of price. So in the same way, it's a matter of leverage. It's a matter of cleverness. It's a matter of knowledge and ideas. But, there's not much of a difference whether you want to make like 100K this year or the first year, or whether you want to make $10 million. There's no real difference. Why? Because it is AI that is going to work for you. It is not you. And this is one thing that people have to really, really understand. Like, even my friends who are very smart investors, they haven't caught up yet, or some of them have, but most of them haven't caught up yet to the fact that, traditionally, when you were an employee, an entrepreneur, an investor, typically you would be working from your knowledge. So the money that you're making depends on the knowledge in your head. And it doesn't really matter whether, for the most part, it doesn't matter where you are working in the cash flow quadrant. So the cash flow quadrant is something that Robert Kiyosaki created, and I'm very grateful to him for that. Robert Kiyosaki is a little bit salesy, a little bit like too aggressive, but one thing that he did very well is that he created this cash flow quadrant where he says, look, you're going to have to make money in this life. So you can choose one of these 4
It's 11 o'clock.
quadrants, right? You can become an employee. You can become a self-employed professional. You can become a business owner. Well, BO is not good. This is like body odor. So let's stick with B. Or you can become an investor. But what Kiyosaki doesn't mention, and it's not his fault, because when he created his Rich Dad Poor Dad book series, AI wasn't there yet. But what he doesn't mention is that, in these 4 categories of work, people are relying mostly on the knowledge in their head. But today, as you know, you don't have to rely just on the knowledge in your head, because maybe you've heard it. They invented this thing called AI. And so the AI is like a huge head, and it has knowledge that is like 10,000 times smarter than you. Okay? Whatever knowledge you have, AI has thousands and thousands of times more knowledge than you have, and it keeps expanding. There's no ending to what AI can do, because what's happening, hold on, what's happening is that the AI that you're using today, it doesn't matter what tool you're using, Grok, Gemini, Claude, Anthropic, DeepSeek, Kimi, Manus, the AI that you're using today is really just a fraction of the AI that is coming. So here, you're in the upper corner here, and the AI is going to keep developing, and therefore it's like this. This AI is like a huge head, okay? And there is no way that you can compete with AI here. And when I say AI, I talk about all the large language models and all the different types of AI that we don't hear about, expert systems, genetic AI. There's tons of AIs that you never hear about, but it's part of the AI world. So you are here with your and my little head, okay? And we tend to think small because our heads are small. Our brain is very small. And so, but even though AI is getting more and more powerful, people are not making money from AI. So in this live stream, I want to show you exactly how you can create a low risk business, so that you can shorten the time that it takes you, like Susan here, the times that it takes you to go from negative profits, and you get break-even point over here, and break-even point is when you're starting to make profits. So this is a break-even point, and from then on, you just go up, and you're going to make money. One thing that is very important to understand, and again, I've seen people make this mistake over and over again. One thing that's very important to understand is that you can have a big vision for your business, and that's fine, right? You have a big vision, but in the short term, you have to pay the bills. So if you don't want to stress yourself, if you don't want to stress your marriage, because finances are the main reason why couples get a divorce. So it's important to understand that. Fortunately, I'm not married. So you may have a big vision, but the important thing to understand is that it is much better to have a small boat that floats, right? So this is your boat, or this is your business. This is better than to have a big boat. You might be thinking about a big boat. I want to make 6-figure. You want to have a big boat. This is more like people who have a big ego. And so you have a big boat, but the problem with people who have a big boat is that it's too complex for them. They don't know what they're doing. And so you see here all the little holes below the water line. This is the water line, right? You have all these holes, and I look at these people, and it's obvious to me, no, you're doing too many things. You're aiming at such a big market. You don't have the skills and the talent. Forget about it. And over time, of course, these visionary entrepreneurs, they fail. Their big boat is sinking. It's much better if you have a small boat, but if we zoom in, the small boat people, It's strange that I talk about boats because I'm from Vietnam, so people refer to us as the boat people. But I would say that we are the small boat people. So the small boat people
It's
also have
11:05.
difficulties, but here you see the water line, right? What's happening is that as long as your difficulties, your problems are above the water line, your boat is not going to sink because water is not going to get through. So a small boat is better, and as long as your problems are above the water line. But when you have a big boat, and by the way, when you have a small boat, the surface here is kind of small, right? It's a small boat, but the problem when you have a big boat is that there are so many ways in which your business is going to fail, like so many ways, because here you can see, under the water here, there, there are so many problem areas. And so if you don't have a lot of experience in business, it's much better to have a small boat, which is why this workshop focuses on low risk businesses. And once you've succeeded with a low risk business, you're generating cash flow, then you can try something bigger. you know it's the same story with Elon Musk. He started with a low risk. He rented out a 6-room apartment and launched a party for students, made like 15 or I think $2,000 in one night. That's low risk. And then he started an internet company. That's low risk. And then eventually he started what became PayPal, a little bit more risk. And then he started Tesla, a little bit more risk, actually much more. And then SpaceX, more risk. And now going to Mars, like huge risk. But you see that even in the case of Elon Musk, he started with low risk, and then over time, it's like a stairway here. Over time, he took on more risk because he had more experience. So this is the risk ladder. And of course, the more risk you're taking, the higher the return. But when you're starting a business, you don't need to aim for a high return. You're not an investor. You're not a VC. You're not an angel investor who's hoping for 5x or 10x return. You just want to survive, right? So here, the risk is very low. And therefore, you should, the risk is low because you have to start a business that is so small or so simple. Like it does only one thing. Like what is the thing that your business is do? What is the result that your business is supposed to accomplish? That's what I mean by one thing. I don't mean you do one thing. I mean you generate or you deliver one thing, one promise to your customers. And that's what I mean when I say like one thing or one result. Don't do too many things. Like don't do public speaking and coaching and consulting. You're not at that level yet. Do one thing. If you're gonna coach all day long. Coach everyone. Coach your neighbor. Coach your dog. I'm just kidding. But if you're a public speaker, speak all the time. Get speaking engagements. Speak all the time. If you're good in selling, sell all the time. Or teach people how to sell. But you got to focus. And that's what I was talking about a few hours ago, because most people don't understand focus. Focus, I think the only person, as far as I know, who truly understands business, and everybody knows this person, I'm sure you've heard of him. His name is Steve Jobs. Steve defined focus very simply. It's your ability to say no. So the more you say no in your life, the more focused you're going to be. So just say no, like Nancy Reagan. But don't say no just to drugs. Say no to everything and to everyone. I say no to TikTok. I say no to gossip. I say no to a lot of things, friends who are jealous but don't really want to help you out. I say no to posting stuff on Facebook. Why? Who cares? I go on vacation. I'm not going to post my pictures on vacation on Facebook just to show that I have a great life. I go out with beautiful women. I'm not going to put pictures of myself with beautiful women. Why? I don't need to brag about anything. So you have to say no to a lot of things that most people don't say no to. Why? Because I don't know, people have ego, they have the fear of missing out, they have this insatiable insatiable appetite for bragging. Like, I'm guilty of that too. I'm normal. I have an ego. Sometimes I'm afraid of missing out and I brag. But as much as possible, we have to learn to say no, because like Steve Jobs taught us, or at least he should have taught you, he should have taught me,
It's 11:10.
is to say no. And so it's a very unusual approach to focus, right? People think that I got to focus on one thing, but it's not enough, because as much as you try to focus on one thing, there's going to be people, there's going to be media gurus online, advertisers. They're all going to try to attack you. They're going to try to attack your focus. They're going to try to distract you. Okay. Everyone is trying to distract you. What is going on right now between Trump and Xi Jinping? What's going on in Iran? What's going on with Vladimir Putin? He's a dead man. Who cares? It doesn't affect my goals, which is, to generate $20,000 in passive income per month. I'm almost there. And my goal of becoming a billionaire by the end of this year, I focus only on that, because distraction is really destruction. Okay. Distraction is destruction. And so focus, say no. Like, ask yourself, is this related to your goal? Well, if it's not, I'm sorry. It's say no. Hey, Peter, you want to go to the casino? No. Going to the casino, nothing to do with my goals. I say no. So have the courage to say no. And as you say no to a lot of things that are going on in the world, right? But who cares? Like, the world is big. A lot of things are going on in the world. You got to focus on your goal. So if you liberate yourself from all the distraction out there, and suddenly you have like a blank sheet of paper, and now you can start to really visualize like what kind of business you want to make. And business is really simple. Business is, you have to, and this comes from Peter Drucker. Just going to share with you, because people talk all the time about business. Everybody thinks that they know what business is, but I didn't know what business is, even though I have a business degree. I had to learn from Peter Drucker. He said that the purpose of a business, are you ready for this? The purpose of a business is to create a customer. Now, it sounds simple, it sounds obvious, but let's really understand what that means. What is it to create a customer? Why not like get a customer? Right? Why not get a customer? Now, before I go on, you have to understand who Peter Drucker is. Like, he's a brilliant writer. Like, if you've read any of his books, very thoughtful, full of knowledge. The knowledge density inside of Peter Drucker's book is just insane. Like, you read one Peter Drucker, one of his books, and it's like having read like 20 books from other authors. Like, he is that smart. He's considered to be the father of management. So you have to analyze each word very carefully. Create a customer. That is the purpose of a business. Okay. What does it mean? Obviously, customer. And by the way, notice that he doesn't mention anything about a product. He doesn't mention AI. He doesn't mention operations. He doesn't mention business cards, websites. No, he mentions a customer. Okay. And obviously, when he says create a customer, he means a repeat customer. Like, what's the point of getting one customer and suddenly you don't have connections, or you don't have the contact information from that customer? You never hear from them again. That's not a customer. That's the women that I used to date. After the first date, I never see them. I'm just kidding. Okay, but a customer is not. A customer is really like someone who comes back to you. That's a repeat customer. But what does it mean when they come back to you? A customer that comes back to you means that they're going to spend money with you. So this is the first transaction. They come back, they're going to spend a little bit more. The third time they spend a little bit more, or they could spend the same amount of money. All right, so that's a customer. It's a cash flow. It's a cash flow. They are flowing cash to you. That's what a customer is. So Peter Drucker is basically saying the purpose of a business is to generate a cash flow. You see how brilliant that is? It's not about products. Who cares? You can sell any kind of product to the same customer.
It's
They're gonna
11:15.
pay you money. That's what you want. So sell to them whatever products they need. And these days, they call it drop shipping. Just sell them any product that you can buy for a very low price, and you ship them directly from China, AliExpress. It goes straight to the customer. You don't care. You just want the money. Whatever the customer wants, you're going to turn around and you're going to buy from China. In the same way that I began to buy like $5 fountain pens from China, and I sell them in North America for $20. So, they want pens, they want ink. What is it that they want? I'm going to buy from China and ship to them. So that's the first component of Peter Drucker's definition of business. The second component is you have to create. And this is very important to understand. So let's take some time to understand what is the difference between creating a customer and getting a customer. Getting a customer means that it used to be somebody else's customers, right? So it's very much like a zero-sum game. But creating a new customer is like creating a new market. Think about like how Steve Jobs created iTunes. It's a new kind of customer who is paying like 99 cents per song. Now, the fun fact is that Steve Jobs didn't really believe in iTunes. Like his whole team had to convince him that iTunes is a good idea. And of course, today it's a multi-billion-dollar business. So the idea here is that Apple, through iTunes, they created a new kind of customer who is very happy to pay about $1 per song. So typically, before iTunes, you had to buy like a whole album, I don't know, for $20. And on the album, there was only one or two songs that you like, but you still had to pay $20, which of course is financial loss for the buyer. But with iTunes, 99 cents, that's it. As I'm thinking about this, maybe I should create like products, instead of selling my video products for, let's say, $100. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud here. Maybe I can sell like modules, and each module is going to be only $5. Or, authors today, like, instead of their selling $20 ebook, why don't they sell like a chapter for $2? And then people can select the chapters that they want. So you can see that iTunes is just a brilliant idea. It creates a new kind of customer. A lot of people could not afford $20. At the time they were using CDs, but definitely almost everyone can afford $1. And speaking of dollar, you probably heard about the $1 store. That's another example of a company that is brilliant because they created a new customer, the $1 customer. Not necessarily cheap people. It's just people that would not pay for an item if it's $5, but if it's $1, yeah, they go for it. So Dollarama, or the $1 store, they created a new customer. Netflix, a new customer. Okay. Originally, they were ordering DVDs by mail, and after that, Netflix went online. Meanwhile, Blockbuster stayed in their lane, and they didn't want to innovate, and therefore they're dead. Blockbuster is dead. And so whenever you see a new company, they are creating a new kind of customer. And that's exactly what Peter Drucker talked about. The purpose of a business is to create a customer. And of course, when we say create, what we mean is a new customer, because that's by definition, when you create something, it is usually new. So you can see the genius of Peter Drucker. Like, he summarizes, the function of the business in a way that no MBA program, no business professor, even from Harvard Business School, I've read all their books, none of them mention define exactly what a business is. A business, like a lot of entrepreneurs, they misunderstand a business. They think that a business is, oh, I have to create like a website, and then I have to have business card, and I have to go networking. Uh, how about a logo? Like
It's
I
11:20.
know a woman entrepreneur who actually spent like $1,000 on a logo and on a business card. It's ridiculous. People have all these notions about what a business really is, when in fact a business is just a cash flow. You have to create a cash flow. And on that basis, by the way, every job is a business. A job is a business that is insecure because you don't control your job, but a job is a business because it gives you cash flow. It pays you every week. You get a paycheck. But the problem, of course, with a job is that you only have one customer, and if the customer decides to leave you, that's it. You're nothing you can do. So hold on, let me check on YouTube. Just want to make sure that my microphone is working. Every week you get a paycheck. Okay, good. So so now that we understand that the purpose of a business is to create a customer, what are you going to do to bring that customer? So obviously, this is where I'm beginning to talk the language of most people, where I become intelligible, so to speak. You have to create value. So we have to understand what exactly is value, and how is it different from a job, how is it different from freelancing, etc. Well, in a nutshell, value is whatever you're giving to, let's say, the customer, and in return she gives you money. And so if we start with that general definition or criteria or validation, it's a good start. We don't have to crystallize our definition and it makes us rigid. So value is that, you provide value, they pay you. That's it. That's all. And of course, there's two different types of value. There's value that is replicable, and value that is not replicable. So very quickly, value that is not replicable is when you're coaching, when you're giving massages to a person, you're giving a haircut. You can only do it once, and there's nothing wrong with that. It feels very gratifying when you're serving someone one-on-one. I used to be a tutor when I was 18. I became a consultant. I became a coach. So one-on-one is very gratifying. The problem is that it's not replicable. You cannot repeat easily. I mean, you can repeat, but you cannot teach other people how to do the same. Okay, replicable. The best example is a digital product. This is really like the extreme example. A digital product, for example, you're creating a video course, and after that, you can have an infinite number of customers. I can have like 100 customers. I can have like 500 customers. They're going to get exactly the same video course. And so obviously you want to create value that is replicable. Now, it's very interesting because replicable doesn't necessarily mean digital. It can be a service that is so simple that you can teach other people how to do it. The most famous example, of course, is McDonald's. The process for making hamburgers, the process for making other menu on the items on the McDonald's menu, but I'm going to stick with hamburgers. No, let's, something that's more recognizable, the Big Mac. This is really bad for your health, by the way. I'm just using it as a business example. But the Big Mac it's the same anywhere in the world. And so this is a service, right? They're making the Big Mac for you. It's not a production chain, but the Big Mac, is a service, but it's highly replicable. But to keep things simple, I tell people, don't go into the franchise business and the McDonald's. That's like, it's way above your pay grade, my pay grade. Just simplify everything and ask yourself, you want to create value and get paid, right? So you have the choice between creating services or creating digital products. And so this is what I recommend to people. Afterwards, you can sell services, not a problem. Or at the same time, you're selling services, add-on services.
It's
But
11:25.
because AI is here, you're more you have more advantages if you create digital products, because AI, as far as I know, cannot create services yet. So you use AI to create digital products. And what I mean is ebooks, video courses, software programs, web applications. There's about 100 different formats for digital products. And so that's exactly, I think, what you should be selling in order to make money. Now, this is half the equation. The other half of your business, so let's just draw like a pie chart. So I would say that half of your business should be to create a product or products, and you have to keep getting better at it. So it's not like you're creating a product and suddenly it's going to sell like hotcakes and you don't have to work anymore. No, you have to keep creating new products all the time. It's very much like a spiral. Your products have to keep getting better and better. And the other half of a business is you have to have a clear idea of who's your target market. Who is it that is buying from you? And chances are you don't know who. You have to test as widely as possible. So on the left-hand side, you have the what are you going to sell? And on the right-hand side, you have who. And again, Peter Drucker is right. He says that in the overwhelming number of cases, entrepreneurs are typically choosing the wrong target market. In other words, they think that this is their target market and they're going after that target market, number one. But chances are there's always a bigger target market that they do not see. And this is target market number two, but they don't see this bigger target market. That's why it's so critical to network and talk to investors and entrepreneurs and, be ready and willing to pivot, because it may cost you some time and money when you pivot from target market number one. But if you do make the pivot and you go to target market number two and you abandon target market number one, that's when you could be making, much more money. Like OpenAI, for example, they decided, you know what, video generation, it's not making money. It's not that popular. We're going to abandon Sora. And so it takes a lot of courage to admit that you're wrong. And so you abandon a market and you pivot to another more lucrative target market. And so, you have to be clear-minded. You have to have the data. You have to talk to a lot of people and learn from them. So guys, it's really that simple. Like if you want to understand and really have the big picture and be able to use AI, and we haven't started to talk about AI yet, but you have to understand the business basics. Number one, what is the solution you're creating? And number two, who is your target market? Okay, so now there's a technique that allows you to reduce even more the risk, because remember, this webinar is all about low risk and consistent, meaning reliable, consistent cash flow. Okay, but we're still talking about risk here. The best way that I've come across to reduce or even eliminate your risk is that instead of creating a product based on your assumptions, your hypothesis, so this is a product, it's going to take you a lot of time and a lot of effort, time, effort, and some money to create this product. And then you go to the market and suddenly, you succeed or you fail, yes or no. Instead of doing that, because all of this, the product development, the marketing, the website creation, all of that, it's a lot of pain, and you are working under uncertainty. And so what if we could reverse the thing? So this is so cool. I mean, I didn't learn this from business school. It's so ingenious that, I'm just gonna redo the diagram, but show you like how or why this is so ingenious. It's like a reversal. So instead of
It's
going
11:30.
instead of doing the typical thing where you're starting on the left hand side, you're creating um, the the product, and then you go to the market over here and you figure out whether you're right or wrong. Instead of doing that, like, what if we eliminate all of this? No, actually, let me change that. What if we reverse the arrow? So this arrow over here, okay, what if we reverse it and it doesn't go from left to the right, but in fact, it goes from right to left? In other words, you sell something, you don't develop it, you sell it. And if you see that people are willing to put a down payment, meaning yes, then you go ahead and you develop the product. You put in the time, you put in the money, and there's no pain. There's certainty, right? Because they paid you already. So yes, they paid you a small amount of money, and you go ahead and you develop the product. Now, if the answer is no, they don't want it, well, you don't do any of this. You just try to have a new idea. And when you have a new idea, you do the same thing. You do what they call a pre-launch or pre-sale campaign. You describe a little bit like crowdfunding on Kickstarter. You just describe and you do a small demo and you describe exactly what your product is. And you tell them, look, we're going to ship the product in 60 days. It's going to be $200, but if you buy it now, it's going to be only $70. So they're making a lot of savings, but they have to wait for 2 months. And, if you have enough people, let's say 500 people go for it, well, that's a clear sign that there is a demand for your product. So you go ahead and you spend the next 60 days creating that product. And you have the money already in your bank account, right? Like $70 times 500. So that's 35,000. And so you have the money to develop your product and you deliver. And after that, they're satisfied and you can start selling for $200. So this is a very ingenious, low risk way of creating new products. And so once you have that product, you can start the game of business, which is not that hard. The game of business, once you have a product, and this is something I used to teach 20 years ago, you have a product and you have an idea of who's buying, you just do the marketing, you do the selling, and you do the fulfillment, or what I call production. And that's it. That's the game of business. It's not hard. It's actually a lot of fun. It's like playing tennis. What is hard is what's happening at the top here, where you have to develop the product or the solution, and you have to make sure that you have a clear market for that. That is hard. And that's the kind of thing where you do both at the same time. Very much like if you were climbing up a ladder, if I ask you, can you climb the ladder with one foot? Of course you can. Nobody can climb a ladder. Well, maybe you can. You can just hop on the next rung, but typically you can't. And so this phase is very much like you have to do both at the same time. You develop the product, you talk to the market. You develop the product, you talk to the market. So it's very much like a yin and a yang. It's like a dance where the two are closely in step, and that's how you climb a ladder: left foot, right foot. So the product development is like the left foot, and the market development is like the right foot. And you got to do both at the same time. A lot of people, for example, in terms of AI, they focus too much time on developing the AI services, the AI products, AI agents, whatever, and they don't talk to the market. And therefore, they come up with something, a website, an agent, a service, an offer, a proposal. They think it's brilliant, but the market doesn't think so. It's because what you've done basically is that you just went up one rung. You think that you went all the way up, but no, you just went up one rung. You still have to talk to the market. That's the other foot. And then you go back, you improve. It has to be left, right, left, right, left, right. You cannot just focus on the product alone. That's why, like, a lot of developers, a lot of programmers, a lot of people who are very technical, but they're not people oriented, they fail because they don't understand that you're not in business to sell something to you. You may love your product, but you're not going to pay yourself. You're in business to serve other people, and therefore, half your time should be development time, and the other half should be talking time. You have to talk to people, tell them, hey, would you like to try this? I think it's useful to you, and by the way, it's free. How can people refuse that? But I think that a lot of technical people, they're
It's
afraid.
11:35.
They're afraid, or they're intimidated, or they're introverted, and they don't want to talk to people. Well, if you don't want to talk to people, the only way is to get a job, because business is really about serving people. Business is about serving people. And if you don't want to talk to people, basically it means you don't want to serve them, right? Like, how can you serve someone if you don't talk to that person? So you have to talk to people. But that's not a big deal. I think most people are social. Like, even if you're introverted, even if you're very technical, trust me, people will like you, especially because you're technical. You have all the technical answers. So talk to people, and you're going to feel that they appreciate you. So this is not necessarily a problem, like this phase, where you're talking to people, and they're going to guide you in your product development. At one point, you're going to have a product that is pretty good, and that's when you go to the market. That's why you start to generate leads. That's the function of marketing. And the function of selling is to convert those leads into customers. In other words, you get their payment or their deposit, whatever, and then you deliver the product to them so that they're happy. This is the ultimate goal. You want customers that are happy. And once they're happy, obviously, they're going to come back for more. And they're going to bring their friends and family, right? So, you can see that to succeed in business is really not that hard. This is something I taught like 20 years ago. I taught it to women entrepreneurs. I taught it to teenagers who are 16 and 17. They all get it right away. It's so simple. I mean, you got to look. And by the way, this is how I was able to generate at one point with a virtual training firm. I was able to generate like over $100,000 within 4 months. And I was working less than 2 hours per week. It's because I understood the system. And this is not even something I learned from McGill University. This is something I came up on my own. You got to generate leads every week. You got to, get paying customers every week, and you have to serve them every week. And really, that's it. You don't need an MBA program for that. You don't need a Bachelor of Commerce. You don't need any kind of specialized training. You just have to understand that you're in business to serve other people. Okay. What else? So I'm going to end it here. But I think that in the last 60 minutes, I think you have enough to start to think like a business person. Yeah, it's been 55 minutes. So please ask me questions in the comments below. I'll make sure to answer you in great detail. But really, business is not that hard. I think that one thing I will say to end this webinar, one thing I will say is that what we know for sure, let me just put down what we know for sure. We know for sure that AI is going to develop. It's really on a kind of curve here. It's going to go AI development, all kinds of AI. It's going to go very fast. You can see the demand for GPUs, for CPUs, for memory. And all the investment going into AI, it's going to continue. So we are here, let's say in 2026, we are in May, it's going to go higher and higher. And yet, the knowledge that people have about business is about flat. And of course, it's going to continue to be flat like this. So we can see that there's a huge gap here. And this gap is where you could make so much money, but because your level of business knowledge is not changing, it is also low, you are losing all of this money. Not because AI cannot help you, but because your business knowledge is too low. It's too low. Sure, you can learn from ChatGPT and your business knowledge is going to increase a little bit, but it's not going to increase that much. I have solutions for that, by the way. But that's why, like I was saying in the previous live stream, that your time is worth so much today. Because before the arrival of ChatGPT, if you waste 1 hour on YouTube, you wasted 1 hour. But today, if you're wasting 1 hour on TikTok or YouTube, that hour is going to cost you a lot, because in that single hour you could have learned so much. You could have increased your business knowledge like this much, and therefore you could have made this amount of money. And so time management is incredibly important today. Like in 1 hour, I can talk to ChatGPT and create a whole business.
It's 11:40.
On paper, of course, I still have to implement and execute, but pretty soon we're going to have agents that are going to do the execution. Like already, Claude Cowork is doing the execution. I haven't gone on that plan yet, but I know enough about it. I'm going to get on the Claude plan called Claude Cowork, and you tell it what you want, and it's going to work on your PC. And when you wake up in the morning, the work is done. I mean, this is crazy. But even if you use Claude Cowork, if you don't understand what business is all about, you're not going to succeed, because the second curve here is business knowledge. It's not about AI. AI, Claude is over here. Manage, acquired by Meta, is over here. OpenClaw, I don't know if they're still hot, but they're over here. That you don't have to worry about that. You don't even have to read so much about it. Just read a little bit about it. The big constraint is your business knowledge. And as long as you don't increase your business knowledge, then there's always going to be a gap where you're going to lose a lot of money. All right, guys, it's been very exciting. If you have questions, please ask them. And I look forward to talking to you, sharing my knowledge in the next live